Distressed by Fortune, a Batman All Media Types fanfic rated for general audiences, with additional tags for Hurt Comfort, Emotional Hurt Comfort, Bat Family Feels, Jason Todd is a Bat Family member, Good Sibling Jason Todd, Badass Motherfucker Jason Todd, Tim Drake and Jason Todd are siblings, Tired Tim Drake needs therapy, Tim Drake needs a hug, Bad Parents Jack Drake and Janet Drake, Fluff, Domestic Fluff, Tags are hard, Tim Drake gets a hug, Jason Todd needs a hug, Protective Jason Todd has issues, Angst, Fluff and Angst, and Unreliable Narrator. This is part 2 in the Robin Chronicles. Summary. Tim was terrified. There was no denying it. He stood in front of Jason's apartment door, shivering and soaked to the bone, clutching his school bag. Jason was not going to be happy once he opened the door and saw him there. Tim knew that. But this was his only option. There was no way he could go to the manor. Tim couldn't face Bruce like this. Or, Tim gets a, quote, bad grade and panics. Now with a bonus scene added. Chapter 1. I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. You say, Lauren Daigle. Tim was terrified. There was no denying it. He stood in front of Jason's apartment door, shivering and soaked to the bone, clutching his school bag. Jason was not going to be happy once he opened his door and saw him there. Tim knew that. But this was his only option. There was no way he could go to the manor. Tim couldn't face Bruce like this. Nor could he go to Dick. Well, theoretically he could, but not in reality. Dick had been gushing for weeks about how he was going to watch a specific movie with Wally. If Tim showed up, his big brother would instantly discard all his plans, and Tim didn't want that. So, instead, he found himself rooted to the spot, too scared to knock on his other big brother's door. He really didn't know where else to go if Jason didn't let him in. Sighing to himself, Tim shakily lifted his hand to knock. It was now or never. Fingers crossed, Jason would let him in. If Jason didn't, well, then Tim was royally screwed. After knocking, he waited, and waited, with his heartbeat speeding up every second Jason didn't open. Tim felt the steady panic rising in him. The moment the apartment door swung open, Tim let out a quiet sob. "Who's that? Oh, it's you." Jason raised an eyebrow as he spotted Tim on the other side of the door. "The fuck are you doing here?" Tim wanted to answer. He really did. But his mouth just wouldn't move, and tears kept rolling down his cheeks. He would have been absolutely mortified if he wasn't feeling so overwhelmed. Jason's eyes narrowed as he noticed Tim's school uniform and the way he clutched his backpack like a lifeline. Muttering to himself, Jason shook his head before grabbing Tim by the shoulder, causing him to flinch. "For fuck's sake, replacement— Tim, I'm not going to hurt you. Not if you just get inside without making a scene." As soon as Tim's mind processed his brother's words through the panic, he quickly shuffled inside so Jason wouldn't change his mind. Once the door clicked shut behind Jason, Tim turned around, his eyes wide as plates. He really hadn't thought this through enough. What was going to happen now? Jason wouldn't hurt him. Tim wanted to believe that with all his might. Fuck, this was stupid and idiotic. He was a Drake, for fuck's sake. He should know better. Before Jason could even utter a word, Tim was already pushing his way past him towards the door again. He had to get out now. "Whoa, what are you doing, Timbit?" Jason asked, confused, as Tim frantically tried to twist the door open with shaky hands. But it wasn't working. He just couldn't get the door to open. Once more, he had failed. He was a failure. In his sheer panic, Tim didn't register the gentle pair of hands prying him from the door and leading him to an old, worn, leather couch. His backpack had been set down next to the coffee table, and someone was crouched down in front of him, holding his hands and rubbing their thumbs over his palms in soothing circles. "Hello? Emmy, are you back with me?" Tim squeezed his eyes shut, trying to focus on the voice, coaxing him back to the surface. Slowly but steadily, he felt his heartbeat calm down. "There we go. Good job, Tim Tam." The voice rumbled, causing Tim to smile at the praise. When he opened his eyes, Tim saw the person, Jason, crouched in front of him more clearly now. His eyes flicked to the door before returning to Jason and his current predicament. Shit! This really happened. How could this have happened? He should have known better. Why was he so damn incompetent? A failure. Why did he have to have a panic attack right in front of Jason of all people? "Tim, you have to calm down. Deep breaths, remember?" Jason instructed, unfazed. "Let's not rush into a second panic attack." When Jason deemed Tim comfortable enough, he stood up and went over to the little kitchen before returning seconds later with 2 mugs of steaming hot tea. "You're lucky I just put on some water before you knocked. And no, don't even think about asking for coffee. You need to calm down, and coffee won't do that." He pressed the mug into Tim's hands before sitting down on the armchair beside the couch. The silence was deafening, as neither of them said a word. Tim mentally prepared himself for the inevitable interrogation and ridicule he would face. No way Jason wouldn't tell someone about this. Even though he and Bruce weren't too close, Jason did try to spend his weekends at the manor to mend broken relationships. Ultimately, it was Tim who broke the silence. He just couldn't take it anymore and muttered a quiet, "Sorry." His eyes were glued to the mug in his hands. Based on the smell, Jason had made some kind of herbal tea, but Tim was too exhausted to try and guess which. "Don't apologize, kid. I'd rather you tell me what had you so worked up," Jason said in a surprisingly calm voice. Tim looked down at his drenched school uniform and his bag, which was just as wet from the rain. Now that his panic had subsided, he felt stupid for freaking out this much. He shouldn't have inconvenienced Jason like a big baby. He should have just gone home with Alfred and accepted whatever punishment B would dish out. Fuck, he was so stupid. I'm sorry for bothering you. I'll leave," Tim muttered, setting down the mug and shaking his head. Yeah, this was for the best. "Like hell you're going to leave, baby bird. Sit the fuck back down and drink your tea." With wide eyes, Tim froze. Shit, he'd pissed off Jason too now. "Timbit, sit down. Please." Jason's exasperated voice reached his ears. Taking a deep breath, Tim sat back down. His mouth felt drier than the Sahara Desert. With shaky hands, he picked up the mug again and took a tiny sip before setting it back down. Tim was very aware of Jason's eyes following his every movement like a hawk. "I messed up really badly. He's gonna be so angry," Tim admitted timidly. Jason's eyebrows rose in surprise. Tim watched as his brother tilted his head in intrigue. "Tell me, kid, what could you have done at school that would piss Bruce off? Did you beat some asshole up? Burn down the school's lab? Kiss your teacher for extra credit?" Jason asked, a sly smile on his face. Tim almost choked on his spit at the last suggestion. "What? No!" He shook his head in disbelief and disgust. "I did none of those things. What the fuck, Jason?" Jason just relaxed into his armchair with a grin and shrugged. "Then whatever you did can't be bad enough to piss off the bat." Biting his lip, Tim reached for his backpack and pulled it towards himself, opening it to retrieve a slightly crumpled piece of paper. Without saying a word, he handed it to Jason. Jason took the paper with a raised eyebrow, confusion clearly written across his face. "Tim, what exactly am I looking at?" "My English lit essay," Tim mumbled, casting his eyes to the floor. Jason hummed. "Picture of Dorian Gray, huh? Pretty good book, if you ask me. You scored a B-. That's decent." Jason looked up again, just in time to see Tim pulling at his hair. Whoa. Don't hurt yourself, kid. What's the fucking issue?" B is gonna be so mad. I should have done better," Tim bit out. Jason was visibly taken aback, speechless for a moment. Tim couldn't help but shy away from his gaze, now that he had made it even worse. Baby bird. Why do you think Bruce will be mad? Well... Tim fidgeted with his hands, actively trying to make himself seem as small as possible. I should have done better. I shouldn't be getting B's. I need to show him that I deserve to be Robin. A lone tear made its way down his cheek when he finished speaking. As he looked up from the floor again, Tim saw Jason's expression soften. Oh, Tim. Jason sighed, almost pityingly. He shook his head before laying the essay on the coffee table. If you don't mind me asking, what would your parents have said about your grade? Jason asked with a neutral look. Well, they wouldn't have been happy. I'm a Drake. I can't allow myself to score anything but A's. Tim replied, furrowing his brow. Tim, Bruce doesn't think like that. What your parents told you is beyond fucked up. Bruce doesn't give a flying fuck if you score a C or an A, as long as you tried your best. Jason calmly explained. Tim felt the gears in his brain turning. B wasn't going to be angry? He wasn't going to take Robin away because Tim was too stupid to interpret a novel? Apparently, he had said the last part out loud because his brother suddenly let out a loud laugh before smiling faintly at him. Bruce is definitely going to let you keep Robin, baby bird. And you aren't stupid just because you didn't top your class one time. Hell, I consistently scored B's and C's, sometimes even D's, in subjects that weren't English Lit or PE. Does that mean I'm stupid? Spluttering with wide eyes, Tim rushed to tell Jason otherwise. In response, his brother only chuckled before finishing his tea. Once more, he looked at Tim with narrowed eyes, before running a hand through his hair. Alright, here's what we're going to do. You're going to take a shower, and get out of your soaking uniform. I'll bring you some clothes of mine to wear, and then, I don't know, we'll watch a movie or something. That's what Dickhead would do. I'll make us some food, and after dinner, I'll bring you back to the manor, where we'll have a talk with Bruce. What? Tim began, alarmed at the mention of talking with Bruce. Shush, Tim Tam. We're just gonna tell him about the crap your parents fed you, so you don't panic next time something like this happens. Your value isn't connected to your academic achievements. That actually sounded like a well-thought-out plan, Tim had to admit. Nodding wordlessly, he let Jason help him up, and usher him towards the bathroom with a stack of freshly washed clothes. As a now-showered Tim settled next to his brother on the couch, he felt exhausted. Before the movie they were watching even hit its halfway mark, Tim was fast asleep with his head resting on Jason's shoulder, and his brother's arm slung around him, pulling him close and protecting him from the world. Jason had not envisioned his afternoon going like this at all. Originally, he had been looking forward to curling up on the couch with one of the new books he had purchased. But then, his replacement had shown up at his door shivering and crying, making it very fucking hard for Jason not to cave in. Rolling his shoulders, he finished dicing the onions and washed his hands before throwing a quick look at Tim, who was still peacefully asleep, curled up on the couch, clutching the blanket Jason had draped over him. With an exasperated shake of his head, Jason turned back to the stove and started pouring olive oil into the pan. He was definitely growing too soft for this fucking brat. Stupid bats. Not even Jason found himself denying the fond smile that appeared on his face later that day when Tim's eyes widened at the delicious taste of his pasta. Chapter 2. Bonus Scene. As Jason slammed the door open to Bruce's study, he knew the next conversation was going to be not very nice. Yeah, not very nice at all. And he would make damn sure of that himself. Greatest detective in the world, yet the old man couldn't even put two and two together when it came to his own damn kids. Timbit trailed behind Jason, sticking to the shadows like he was trying to make himself as small as humanly possible. Like he was scared Bruce would lash out. Not that Jason would ever let B lay a fucking hand on Tim. And no, this wasn't because Tim was Tim. Absolutely fucking not. This was, of course, only because the kid was just that. A kid. one he'd accidentally almost hurt before. No other reason. He wasn't some kind of compassionate hero, after all. The door ricocheted off the wall with a loud thud, and Bruce's attention snapped to them. His eyes flickered between Jason and Tim, taking them in. Jason's hand rested firmly on the nape of Tim's neck, less to keep the brat from bolting, and more to steady him. Not that the first reason wasn't still on the table, especially after this morning's little incident. Because, yeah, the moment Jason mentioned talking, no, violently confronting Bruce about what had gone down the day before, Tim had damn near had a meltdown. Jason had literally dragged the kid away from the living room window and locked the front door. Now, Bruce was staring at them with something like shock, which was saying a lot, considering this was the master of hiding emotions. Yeah, must have been a real sight, Jason standing in his old man's study like it was just another Tuesday. "Jay, lad." Bruce finally broke the silence. Jason flashed him a smile. Not a polite one. No, this was that smile. The one he'd given Dick after the asshole had eaten the cookies. Alfred made it just for Jason. The smile that promised nothing good. The kind that smoldered past any decent feelings and left nothing but a volatile fucking storm behind. "You're a real piece of shit, you know that?" His voice was calm. Dangerously so. Bruce went still. His breathing evened out. Pupils locking onto Jason. Calculating. "What do you mean? I'm afraid I don't quite understand," Bruce said, slipping seamlessly into his businessman persona. Or maybe it was his concerned father act. Who the hell was Jason to know? He let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Did you know that your precious little Robin has some pretty severe academic issues?" Jason almost spat the word precious, full of nothing but contempt. Contempt for what he'd never be in Bruce's eyes. In the corner of his vision, Jason saw Tim shrink, trying to disappear into himself. Bruce's gaze snapped to Tim. His expression shifted too fast to pin down. "Tim." Bruce's voice softened. A rare thing. "Do you need help? You can always come to me if you don't understand your assignments." It was almost cute. A father comforting his son. Jason, naturally, ruined the moment by letting out another sharp, dry laugh. Bruce froze, his eyes flicking back to Jason. Narrowing. And there it was. That sharp, dissecting look. Ready to tear Jason apart piece by fucking piece. Ah, so now the old man was mad at him for shitting all over his little hallmark moment. How sad. Jason bit back a smirk, his chest burning with something bitter and ugly, and chuckling sardonically to himself. "Not those kind of problems, dipshit." Jason sneered. "The kind your fucking money won't solve by being thrown at it. So, hold your horses on cashing out for the best damn tutors." He rolled his eyes, casting a quick glance at the kid still in his grasp. Tim looked about 2 seconds away from a full-blown heart attack. If not that, then he'd probably vibrate himself straight through the fucking floor with how hard he was shaking. Jesus fucking Christ. Jason was not soft. Fuck no. He was the motherfucking Red Hood, even as he gently steered the kid into a chair in front of Bruce's desk. Even as he stalked over to Bruce's fancy-ass cupboard, snatched a guest glass, and filled it with water from the pitcher, and shoved it into Tim's trembling hands. The whispered, "Thank you," from Timbit almost automatically loosened something in Jason's shoulders. Just a little. He pressed his hands into the back of the kid's chair, leaning forward as he met Bruce's gaze again. His voice was softer this time. "Timmy here has some issues with his self-esteem being tied to his grades." Bruce's brows furrowed immediately, as his brain got to work processing that. One of Jason's hands drifted down to Tim's shoulder, squeezing lightly. "How about you tell Mother Bat here what happened yesterday, and how you ended up with me?" Tim audibly swallowed before clearing his throat. His voice wavered. We got an essay back. It was English literature." A pause. Then, in one rushed breath, It was about the picture of Dorian Gray. And I read the book, but I didn't understand the prompt, and I messed up. And now my grade isn't what it's supposed to be. And I was scared that I would lose Robin because I didn't want to lose it. So I will do better. Bruce blinked, then blinked again. It took a few seconds for the old man to process the nervous rambling before he finally asked, voice gentle, "What grade did you get, Tim?" Fidgeting with his fingers, Tim Tam looked anywhere but at Bruce as he mumbled, "A B-." Unconsciously, Jason had started massaging the kid's shoulder. His eyes stayed locked on Bruce, whose eyebrows had shot straight up. "Tim, a B is a perfectly fine grade," Bruce said firmly. "But—" "No buts, Timbuktu. Remember our chat yesterday?" Jason cut in, before the kid could spiral again. Bruce swallowed, then stood up, walking over to Tim and kneeling in front of him. "As long as you aren't failing any classes, your grades don't matter, Tim," Bruce said, his voice steady but warm. "They don't define you. They don't determine your worth." He placed a careful hand on the youngest's knee, looking up at him with a disgusting amount of love and concern. Jason almost fucking gagged. Yeah, no, he did not need to be here for this little heart-to-heart. This was not his place. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. His hands fell away from Tim's shoulders as he turned towards the door. A part of him screamed that he shouldn't leave, that he should stay, that he should try. Fuck no. He doesn't deserve that. His time had passed. His chance. It was too late. How could he even want that? Blasphemy. "Jason." Bruce's voice stopped him just before he could slip out of the office. "Thank you." Jason turned back just enough to catch the serenity in Bruce's eyes. Probably fake. Definitely fake. Snorting, because he had no fucking idea how else to react, he tightened his grip on the doorknob and forced his voice to be as flat as possible. "It was nothing. Now take care of your fucking son." It was only a matter of time, after all, before Tim got the adoption papers he deserved. Perfect little rich boy that he was. Jason shut the door firmly behind him, and fled as far away from Wayne Manor, and from that office, as physically possible. Which meant he wasn't around to hear the quiet, broken, "But you are my son too." Notes. Of course, Brucey was furious that Tim's parents had made him believe his value was tied to his grades, and he immediately assured Tim that this was not the case. And when Dick came back from his definitely not a date with Wally, he was upset that his brothers had cuddled without him, and promptly dragged the whole family to the living room for a movie and cuddle night. Happy you guys enjoyed. It would mean the world to me if you left a comment and or visited my Tumblr page. Have a nice day/night. Hurt/comfort. Fucking cat. Jesus Christ. Are you gonna chill the fuck out? The answer is no, she's not gonna chill the fuck out. Why 6 o'clock? Why 6 in the goddamn AM are you doing this shit? 3 bananas worth of radiation.